Hello, hello, beautiful people. Today I want to talk about expression, self expression, because it is the cure for so much that weighs us down. And I really learned this deeply whenever I was doing the shame stories a couple months ago. And this message keeps coming up, like expression. And so I've been thinking about it, right? Because that's what I do. And so a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I actually started expressing myself on the camera and then sending it out to the world, which is like so many things came up during that. And there's two major ones that I've been thinking about, and they're so real, y'all. So if you are struggling to express yourself, it makes so much sense, and I just want you to know that. Like, I've been working on this for a few years now. It took me a couple years before I could even, like, talk in my house to myself whenever I was alone. That's how deep this is. That's how scary it is. So there's a couple things that stand in the way of expressing ourselves. And ironically, the first one that I'm going to go over, the cure for it is expressing yourself. So it's like this cycle, right? Shame. Shame is one of the reasons that we don't express ourselves. Maybe we've expressed ourselves in the past as a child or a young adult, and we were meant to feel like we're bad or wrong because of what we expressed. Then you don't want to express yourself anymore because you feel like it makes you bad or wrong, right? But the cure for that is to express yourself. So isn't that interesting? So shame, it goes deep. You know, children are to be seen and not heard. So when we were heard, it was like, you're not a good child. You're not a good human, you know? And there's just so much that comes, and it's not even like that was the intent by the person or people who were saying that. They were probably just annoyed because when they were kids, they weren't allowed to speak either, you know? So it's just interesting that we don't express ourselves because we're full of shame, yet to let go of that shame, you have to express it. The other thing is fear. And this one is so real. Like, whenever I first started thinking about getting online and sharing what I had learned, the fear of being murdered, that's the one. The fear of being killed for speaking my truth, for sharing my experiences, for wanting to share with the world what's on my heart, you know? That fear of being killed for it. And I believe, you know, and it comes up too, like I've worked through this fear. I've been working on this fear for years now. And it's like with all these scientists that are getting killed right now, it comes back up. You know, when Charlie Kirk got killed, it came back up. When you talk about Jesus, it comes back up, right? Because there's all these people like Michael Jackson, Martin Luther King. Like, if you stand up and speak truth, they might take you out. And that's really scary. And the way that I've worked around that is like holding it all in got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. Like, it was killing me too. And it's like, I'm not really me. I'm this like person who's being something who they think they have to be to survive, but that's not really living, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. Yet every time that I do express myself, sometimes it was scary at the beginning. Like the first video I ever made, like I literally threw up and cried for a couple hours. But after that, like you just feel like lighter and better, and then you want to do it again and again and again and again. So it's like, even if they do kill me, at least I went out being myself. And you know, like, you get more connections that way too, whenever you're hiding who you actually are by not expressing yourself. You lose yourself. And then to me, that's worse than dying. But it took me a long time to get there. I had to sit with that fear, knowing that that fear is real. You know, we store this in our DNA. There's no telling what I'm remembering, you know? And then there's all this evidence in front of us all day, every day about what happens to truth speakers, people who express themselves without shame and without guilt. And it's scary. But at the same time, if you don't, you just stay disconnected from yourself, disconnected from everyone around you. You feel so alone because you're not really you. You cannot connect with someone if you're not being the real you. And I think about like all the subtle ways, and I'm still working on this. I'm not fully expressed yet. I'm still scared to say a lot of things, you know? But this comes into play, especially like whenever you're needing to make boundaries. You're scared to tell people how you're feeling. You're scared to tell people what's really going on with you because maybe you're afraid that they will reject it or you'll lose them, which is very real. You know, if you've been acting a certain part for so many years and you're just done with it, and then you start being the real you, anybody who benefited from you not expressing yourself is not going to like it. And you're going to find out who the real ones are, who your real ones are. And it's not a fun time. It can feel very lonely. But with you expressing what you actually are, you will also attract people that will actually connect with you. And then it starts to feel a lot less lonely and a lot more real. Because whenever we're in those relationships that are built on the facade of what we need to be for society, it lacks depth. It's all surface level, you know, like you don't really feel that connection. You feel alone even though you're with them. And that's because you're not really connected to yourself and you're not expressing yourself, you know? So it's interesting too that this video, like I've been thinking about it for a few days and there was so much resistance to making it. Like, I want to talk about expressing myself, but I'm scared to express that. So it's just interesting whenever you start paying attention to what you want to say versus what you're actually saying. Like, if somebody asks you to go somewhere and you say, okay, but you really don't want to go, you're not expressing your true self, you know? There was one more point I wanted to make with this. It left me. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Express yourself. Oh, I remember. It's also important, and I don't even know if this is true or not. Maybe this is just my fear of expression. But like, I think about the times whenever I was drinking, and I used to use alcohol. Like, one of my first triggers that I worked through, like, I thought I couldn't like express myself without alcohol. Like, I needed alcohol to get the courage, right? The liquid courage to say what I needed to say. But then whenever I would do that, it was never productive. It was always making things worse. And I feel like it's the same thing, like if you lash out while you're angry. So there was a lot of journaling that happened, and I still do this. Like, whenever I need to get out my raw, unfiltered feelings that I don't want to, like, I don't want to attack anybody, but I also want to flush that anger out, get real with what's actually going on. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, whenever you're super charged, like, go ape shit, basically. Or get drunk and then lash out on everybody around you. Like, there's a healthier way to, like, not let that build up and to flush out the nastiness so that it can be productive expression. And not to say that you shouldn't do that, because I can see how it served a purpose for me, basically in showing me that, hey, it's not working and there's a different way. But it did like let off some of the steam, you know? But you can do that. Like, I like to write letters that I don't send, and I like to write unfiltered exactly what I'm feeling and then burn it. And it kind of like reduces the charge of that, and then I can really get into like what it is that I'm feeling. Why is it that I'm angry? What boundary do I need to implement? And then whenever you actually talk to a person about it, it can be more productive, because it's more I statements. Like, I feel this way when this happens, instead of you make me feel this way, you did this, you did that, blah, you know? Like, you really want to come at it from self-expression, not like beating somebody else down. You know, the goal is to connect or repel people who will not connect with you, and that's just as fine. But whenever we're like attacking with our expression, it's just not productive. It's not really healthy. It doesn't solve anything other than maybe letting off a little steam, which you could have done without them and then had a productive conversation after. So, yeah, express yourself from a place of love, from a place of self-love. Like, I'm saying this because it's on my heart and it's what I'm called to say. It's what I really, like, what I'm feeling right now. You know, what matters to me, what I desire. And then it's not about them so much, other than, you know, hopefully they receive the message. But sometimes they don't, and that's okay too. You still express yourself, and then you can make a choice after that. So it's so crazy, because I feel like for so long I just sat back and listened, and I learned so much from that. So, like, we do have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So if you're always expressing yourself, maybe listening could be helpful for you. But if you're always listening and never actually letting anybody inside, letting anybody know what your opinions are, your values, your desires, what enrages you, you know, like, then they don't really get to know you. They know something that you think you need to be. And that could be why it feels so alone all the time. It could be why you feel empty inside. And really, it boils down to self-love, you know, being kind to yourself, kind enough to know that you do matter, enough to speak up, being honest with yourself. That way you can be honest with everybody else around you, and being respectful to yourself, listening to what your body's telling you, and then expressing that. And it's such important work. It's freeing. You're liberated whenever you can say what's on your mind and not let it like live inside of you. So that's all I have for today. Bye.